This episode is brought to you by 365 Connect, the world's most advanced automated marketing and leasing platform built to keep your communities running 24/7, totally hands-free. Be sure to check out UnitRev, their AI-powered platform that creates and posts real-time content across search and social using live property data. It's redefining how communities attract and convert renters. It's a total game changer. I've seen it in action, and it's impressive. Visit 365connect.com today and tell them Mike sent you for a 30-day free trial. To another episode of the Multifamily Collective. I'm going to label this one the Caffeine Wire, the Multifamily Caffeine Wire. I was out on the road for a couple of weeks and I had an opportunity to read through a bunch of backlog information that I had stacked around in my office. I just took a handful of stuff with me on the trip. And I thought there were a couple of things that hit my mind in a way that I thought would be useful and of value to the community here. So these are basically news headlines. I'm just going to tell you what I think about them and maybe connect the dots in a few cases. But there's this interesting thing that came out. There's this company in Florida called Homa, Homa. I'll link that up in the show notes. Homa, the headline reads, Florida buyers are first in the U.S. to close a home using AI, saving thousands of dollars in realtor fees. Obviously, I work in the multifamily space in realtor fees. So they basically used AI from start to finish to go through the process of purchasing a home. And in the process of doing so, they cut out the brokerage fee that they would normally and historically pay to a realtor because the AI was trained on all the local regulations and everything that was necessary to do this thing in a legal way. And I think it's an interesting tell. A couple of things I would say about this. You cut out those fees and you marry that together with I think this is a big if mortgage timelines go from 30 years to 50 years or 30 years to 40 years or something beyond 30 years, interest rates come down, no more brokerage fees. It could be an interesting home buying market in the coming, let's say, 3 to 5 years, plus minus. I don't know. But the other thing that I think is interesting, and I've been in the process of trying to stitch this together for some bit of time. Let's say it's been the last 8 years, plus or minus, definitely 5 years since the introduction of the digital leasing consultant into the workflow of multifamily, completely digitizing or automating that workflow from the time that you find a resident, even finding that resident or potential resident, so prospect, through to the end of the lease signing with no human involved. It could be showing and demonstrating the unit, getting the application done, getting all the credentials checked, getting the lease signed, getting the digital entry and or lockbox code to the resident so that they could actually identify a place where they want to live and go all the way through the end without seeing or communicating with a human if they want to. In Florida, they're buying homes that way. Should be interesting. Another thing, the pricing, the DOJ settlement with RealPage and revenue management or the revenue model. I read Dom Beveridge's blog on this. Dom always has the best news on revenue management and the latest happenings in this. He called it a nothing burger, a big nothing burger. But then born out of this, or the knock-on effect of this, is that you have these local municipalities that are now trying to outlaw the traditional old school market survey, which is very public data anyway. So this is going to be interesting. I think the big crescendo moment of this is pretty much over. Now you have RealPage suing Letitia James in New York. That should be interesting. But you're going to see some fallout from this, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what ultimately comes of it. It's at the end of the day, I just think this was just somebody had an axe to grind and went after what they thought would give them some promote on the street, so to speak, if they brought this thing down. The other headline, the next headline that I read was portable tenant screening report legislation on the rise. I actually got this one off the NMHC website. This is interesting in that many years ago, I lived in San Francisco and I had people would come into our leasing office and they would have in hand what they called a renter's resume. And it basically gave me all of the information that I needed to qualify them sort of as a one pager as to whether or not they could live in the community. I just married that against our rental criteria and I could figure out pretty quickly whether they would qualify to live there or not. Now, at the time, we still went through our standard practices of having them fill out an application But that renter's resume was sort of this one-page thing that caused a thought in my mind that we could, in fact, create a platform. At the time, I don't think this was possible. Maybe it was. It was right around the time that .com era was taking off. But you could create a repository, so to speak, or a place that was certified by a lending institution or some place that could verify all this information and keep it current. But that place, that platform, is where a renter's resume would stay. And this wouldn't just apply to rentals. It could apply to buying a home. It could apply to buying a car, apply to anything. But you keep it in there. Resident keeps it updated, probably in an automated way through ADP and other pieces or the places that would need to feed information into it. Or maybe ADP owns it, or Equifax owns it. Somebody owns it, right? That way it has merit, a real merit. This is suggesting that a renter could put together their own portable credit, walk into a rental office and say, here it is. You don't need to run anything on me. I'm just going to give it to you. And thereby you can't charge me for going around to several different places and applying. In some places, this is actually legal, like Colorado. And I think they're trying to make it legal in Florida and a couple of other places, if I recall correctly. But all that being said, I don't necessarily love this legislation. I don't like the idea of a prospect coming into my office and handing me a piece of paper and me having to qualify them to live there based on the piece of paper. I'd still run through my traditional qualifying criteria and processes and workflows. But I do think there is a chance for a business to be created where you can keep this stuff, keep a renter's resume that is portable, and you integrate in with that system. Residents, potential residents, or consumers are in that same space, and there's an exchange that can happen that can feed into your property management system or your qualifying workflow, and you just carve out this whole thing, this whole industry that has been part of the multifamily space for a very long bit of time. So I think it's all good, but I think there's just a better way, faster way, less friction-filled way to get that done, and it should be portable. I'm a big advocate of that. I think it should be portable. I think it should be kept up to date, and it can be current technologies. And not that I want to see a big chunk of our industry go away in terms of supplier partners. I don't want to see that necessarily, but I think they could probably pivot into something that is equally beneficial to them. But anyway, all that being said, those are my 3 multifamily caffeine takes for this week. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.